everyone, welcome to Statecraft IS Academy. Let's get started with the current affairs. Our first topic of discussion is SIPRI Yearbook 2021. So here SIPRI refers to the Swedish think tank, that is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. It has released its Yearbook 2021 and the key findings include India possessed an estimated 156 nuclear warheads compared to 150 at the start of last year, whereas Pakistan had 165 warheads up from 160 in 2020. So basically both India and Pakistan has increased the number of warheads, as well as Pakistan has more number of warheads than India. Also, the China's nuclear arsenal consisted of 350 warheads up from the 320 last year. And important to note, the 9 nuclear armed states. So the 9 nuclear armed states include US, Russia, UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, Israel and North Korea. And this Russia and US together possesses over 90% of the total global nuclear weapons. Next, we'll talk about the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. So it is basically an independent international institute which is dedicated to the research into conflicts, armaments, armed controls and disarmament. And it was established in 1966. So it basically provides the data analysis and its recommendations to the various stakeholders. Next, we'll talk about the World Giving Index. So this index has been published by the Charities Aid Foundation, which ranks over 140 countries in the world according to how charitable they are. So basically they ask 3 main questions to the volunteers of the various countries to know the aspect of their behavior. So these questions include whether they have helped a stranger, whether they have donated money to the charity, or in their volunteer time to any organization. So this index basically measures the countries by a proportion of the population giving rather than how much they give. So latest findings include that the most generous country in the world is Indonesia, and Australia and New Zealand is the only high income countries to remain in this year's top 10. And India is the 14th most charitable country. This Charities Aid Foundation, it's a leading international charity registered in UK. Next, we'll talk about Rajaparv. So it's a festival which is celebrated in Odisha. It's a 3-day long festival which is dedicated to the Mother Earth, that is Bhumi Deva, and the womanhood at large. And the first day of the festival is known as Pehli Raja. The second day is Mithuna Sankranti and the third is Bahudaha or Basi Raj. The fourth and the final day is called the Vasumati Snan, the bathing of the Mother Earth. And this festival is also associated with the end of the summer season and the arrival of the monsoon. So remember, this Rajaparv, it's a festival that is celebrated in Odisha. Such festivals are very important in terms of prelims. So read about other festivals as well and the states in which they are celebrated. Next, we'll talk about the Operation Olivia. So recently, the Indian Coast Guard has pressed into the service an aircraft for Operation Olivia to protect the olive ridley turtles. So remember, all this Operation Olivia, it is related to protection of olive ridley turtles. And it has been launched by the Indian Coast Guard in the early 1980s. And this operation aims to protect the olive ridley turtles when they arrive at the Odisha coast for breeding and nesting from November to December. So this India Coast Guards execute this operation, and they also conduct round-the-clock surveillance. And the assets of the Indian Coast Guard, such as fast patrol vessels, interceptor craft and the Dornier aircraft, are also used in this operation to enforce the laws near rookeries. This rookeries basically is the colony of breeding animals. Next, we'll talk about what olive ridley turtles is. It's an important topic of UPSC. So these turtles, they are basically the smallest and the most abundant of all the sea turtles found in the world. And these turtles are carnivorous and they get their name from their olive colored carapace. They migrate thousands of kilometers between feeding and the mating ground in the course of the year. and they are best known for their unique mass nesting called the Aribada, where thousands of females come together on the beach to lay eggs. And talking about their habitat, they are basically found in warm waters of the Pacific, Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. Next, this Odisha's Gahir Mata Marine Sanctuary is also known as the world's largest rookery of sea turtles. Talking about the protection status, so this in the IUCN Red List, they are considered vulnerable. The sites, they are in the Appendix 1, and in the World Wildlife Act of 1972, they are in the Schedule 1. Other initiatives related to olive ridley turtles include, the Odisha government has actually made it mandatory for the trawls to use a turtle excluder device. So this is basically a net which is specially designed with an exit cover, which allows the turtles to escape while retaining the catch. Next, we'll talk about the Tulu language. So the Tulu speakers, mainly in the Karnataka and Kerala, have been requesting the government to give it official language status and include it in the 8th schedule of the constitution. Talking about the language, it is basically a Dravidian language, that is a South Indian language. It is mainly spoken in 2 coastal districts, the Dakshina Kannada and Udupi of Karnataka and Kasaragod district of the Kerala. So this Kasaragod district is important as it is also called the Saptabhasha Sangam Bhumi, basically the confluence of 7 languages, and Tulu is also one of the 7 languages. So next we'll talk about the Tulu art and culture. So this Tulu has a rich oral literature or traditional with the folk song forms like Padvana and the traditional folk theatre Yakshagana. So this Yakshagana was also in news last year. It is it is one of the most famous traditional folk art theatre in Karnataka. So remember this about Yakshagana. And Tulu also has an active tradition of cinema with around 5 to 7 Tulu language movies produced a year. Next, what is the advantage of basically including a language in 8th schedule? For a year, it will be Tulu. So this language will get a recognition from the Sahitya Academy. Also, the translation of Tulu literary work can be done in other languages. And the members of the parliament and the members of the legislative assembly can speak Tulu in the parliament and state assemblies respectively. Also, students can be given an option to take the competitive exams in Tulu, including all India competitive examinations like civil services exam. Next, talking about the 8th schedule of the constitution. So the constitution provides provisions relating to the 8th schedule, which occurs in the article 344 and 351 of the constitution. And the languages in 8th schedule include Assamese, Bengali, Gujarati, Hindi, Kannada, Kashmir, Konkani, Malayalam, Manipuri, Marathi, Nepali, Odia, Punjabi, Sanskrit, Sindhi, Tamil, Telugu, Urdu, Bodo, Santhali, Maithili and Dogri. So note there are 22 languages that has been included in the 8th schedule of the constitution, and remember that English is not included in the 8th schedule. No, this is an important fact for the prelims. Also, to include any language or any change in the 8th schedule requires a constitutional amendment. So the languages are added through constitutional amendment. And also there are 6 classical languages in India, and Odia was recently included. It became the 6th language of the country to get a classical language status, and the other 5 include Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada and Malayalam. Next, we'll talk about rosewood. So recently, a steep demand in the international market for musical instruments and furniture fashioned out of rosewood has increased its widespread illegal felling. Its scientific name is Dalbergia latifolia. And important to note that it occurs in evergreen or deciduous tropical or subtropical forest, and they found in deep, well-grained and moist soils that has an elevation range of 300 to 1000 meter above the sea level, and they are native to India, Nepal, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Java and Indonesia. Talking about its features, so it is a large hardwood tree that can grow up to 40-meter tall, and it is highly utilized as a timber species. And it is renowned for the color and the fragrance of its wood. We have all heard about rosewood, no? And it is known for the color and basically their fragrance. And it is particularly prized for making musical instruments, example guitars, also furnitures, flooring, plywood, carving and molding. So talking about its conservation efforts, it is protected under the Indian Forest Act 1927 with the export of logs and sawn timber being banned. And the Kerala restrictions on cutting and destruction of valuable tree rules 1974 does not allow the cutting of rosewood that has not attained a girth of breast height of 2.5 meters. And it is considered vulnerable in the ICN Red List, and also it is in the Appendix 2 of CITES. Talking about its threats, so timber is of high commercial value, and wild subpopulations are widely and overexploited, and the continued deforestation across its range due to human settlement and agriculture. Next, we'll talk about the NATO summit. So, NATO summit was recently held in Brussels, and it brought together leaders of all 30 allied nations. So, this alliance is based on the North Atlantic Treaty that was signed in 1949, and it was formed as an alliance with the European and the North American countries after the World War as a bulwark against the Russian aggression. And its headquarters is in Brussels, Belgium. So it's an intergovernmental military alliance between the North American and the European countries, and it constitutes a system of collective defense whereby its independent member states agree to mutual defense in response to any attack by any external party. So this basically means that if there is an attack against one of the member states, the other states will consider that attack as an attack to them and would go for a mutual defense against that external party. Next, the members of it include, there are 30 members, and Montenegro joined it in 2017 and North Macedonia in 2020. So North Macedonia has recently joined this organization, and of the 30 member countries, 2 are located in North America, that is the Canada and US, whereas 28 are in Europe, one of which, that is Turkey, is in both Europe and Asia. We know this fact that, important to note this fact actually, that Turkey is both in Europe and Asia. Also, the 3 former Soviet states, that is Estonia, Latvia and Lithuania, are the members of NATO. These 3 states are together called as the Baltic countries. So all for today guys. If you like the video, please like, share and subscribe. Thank you.